Here is something airlines have never officially advertised. On a typical U.S. domestic flight, two people sitting in identical economy seats, same row, same legroom, same overhead bin, paid, on average, about $160 different from each other. Not a different airline, not a different flight, the same seat, the same departure. That gap is not a mistake. Most people know roughly why. Book early, pay less. Leave it late, pay more. That explanation isn't wrong, but it is incomplete. What's actually happening beneath the surface is something stranger and considerably more deliberate. Economy class on a major airline is not one product. It is a stack of products, somewhere between 7 and 12 of them, depending on the airline, all occupying the same physical seat. Each has a letter code: Y, B, M, H, Q, V, W. A naming system that tells you nothing useful, which is rather the point. Each is a different price with different conditions. The seat doesn't change, the slot you buy into does. This system generated $148.4 billion in airline ancillary and pricing revenue globally in 2024, more than the entire annual revenue of the Walt Disney Company. And it was invented by one airline in one specific year to kill a specific competitor. The airline was American. The year was 1985. And to understand what they built, you need to understand the world they inherited. For 40 years, from 1938 to 1978, the United States government told airlines what they could charge. A body called the Civil Aeronautics Board set fares on every domestic route. Airlines competed on service, the quality of the meal, the width of the seat, because competing on price was not permitted. The result was predictable. A round-trip flight between New York and Los Angeles cost the equivalent of $1,442 in today's money. Flying was for business travelers, expense accounts, and the relatively wealthy. The average American family took a Greyhound. In 1978, Congress passed the Airline Deregulation Act. The CAB was abolished. For the first time, airlines could set their own fares and open their own routes. The logic was simple. Competition would drive prices down, and over time, it did. But first, it created chaos. New carriers entered the market with cost structures the legacy airlines could not match. They paid lower wages, flew point-to-point routes, and passed the savings on as flat, transparent prices. Flying became, for the first time, something an ordinary family might actually consider. The most aggressive of these new entrants was People Express Airlines, founded in 1981 by a man named Donald Burr. Newark to Atlanta for $89. It grew into the fifth largest carrier in America. From its very first day of operation, it was profitable. Then it ran into Robert Crandall. The foundation of what Crandall would build was not a new idea. It was a computer system, commissioned 20 years earlier by a different man with a different problem. Around 1953, American Airlines President C.R. Smith met an IBM salesman named Blair Smith on a flight. Smith described Americans' problem. The airline needed the system to track every reservation on every route in real time without a room full of clerks. IBM agreed to build one from scratch. The project took 7 years and cost $40 million, roughly $425 million in today's money. 2 IBM 7090 mainframes went into a facility in Briarcliff Manor, New York. By 1964, the system, called Sabre, was processing 7,500 reservations per hour. Booking time dropped from 90 minutes to seconds. Sabre started as inventory management, knowing which seats were filled and which weren't. But it had a deeper capability no one had fully exploited yet. It recorded when people booked, at what price, and how quickly each flight was filling. At scale, across millions of flights over years, that was a map of demand. Crandall's operations research team saw what that map could do. If you understood demand precisely enough, you could price into it, not with one fare, but with many. They built a system on top of Sabre. They called it Dynamo. Donald Burr had built People Express on one honest principle: one price, no complexity. You showed up at the airport, paid your fare, flew. No advance purchase required, no restrictions, no games. The ticket price was the ticket price. Imagine you are running American Airlines in 1984. You serve the same routes. A customer who would have paid you $250 discovers they can fly People Express for $79. You lose them. And at 10 million passengers a year, losing them repeatedly is an existential problem. On January 17, 1985, American Airlines launched what it called Ultimate Super Saver Fares, cheap tickets on every route where People Express competed. But Dynamo controlled one critical detail. Not every seat on the flight was cheap. The system decided, flight by flight, exactly how many were. The algorithm forecast demand on each departure. It allocated discounted seats only where they would fill capacity that would otherwise fly empty, while protecting the remaining seats for customers willing to pay full fare. American could undercut People Express on the same route without sacrificing its margin on the whole plane. People Express had no equivalent. Its model was flat pricing, the whole plane at one fare. To compete, it had to bring every seat down. American only had to bring some of them down. That asymmetry is what killed it. Donald Burr, CEO of People Express, described what happened next in his own words. We were a vibrant, profitable company from 1981 to 1985, and then we tipped right over into losing $50 million a month. We had been profitable from the day we started until American came at us with ultimate super savers. $50 million a month. In the first 9 months of 1986, People Express posted losses of $245 million. By September, it was sold to Texas Air Corporation for $110 million, less than the losses it had accumulated in 9 months. American's operations research team, Barry Smith, John Limecooler, and Ross Darrow, published a paper in 1992 documenting what Dynamo had achieved. They had already won the 1991 Franz Edelman Award, the highest honor in operations research. Over 3 years, Dynamo had generated $1.4 billion in incremental revenue. That is 12.5 times the price paid for the company it destroyed. American Airlines did not beat People Express by flying better planes or hiring better staff. It beat them by computing, seat by seat, what each customer was actually worth, and charging precisely that. Every major airline in the world studied what American had done. Within a decade, yield management was the industry standard. The pricing system that greets you every time you search for a flight was built, originally, as a weapon. It won. Then it became infrastructure. Here is what that infrastructure actually does, right now, on every flight you have ever looked up. When an airline opens a route for sale, typically around 11 months before departure, it does not create one price. It creates a ladder. At the top of the ladder is the fully flexible economy fare. No change fees, refundable, available until the last seat sells. Below it, a series of progressively cheaper classes, each one cheaper, each one more restricted. Book 30 days out with a Saturday stay and you get one slot. Book tomorrow for a Tuesday flight and you get a different one entirely. Same seat, different position in the queue. The algorithm manages these classes continuously. Early in the window, cheap classes are open. As seats sell, the system closes them. On a route filling faster than expected, a bank holiday weekend, a conference city, cheap classes disappear early. On a slower route, they linger. Every few minutes on a busy route, the system recalculates. This is also what explains the $160 average gap between two passengers on the same flight. They didn't pay different amounts because one was cleverer than the other. One of them happened to enter the queue when a cheap class was open. The other entered when it had closed. And every time you search for a flight, every tab you open, every date you click, you feed this system with data it interprets as demand. If search volume on a route spikes, the algorithm responds. You are, without knowing it, participating in an auction where the prices change as you watch. Yield management, as it operated from 1985 into the 2020s, was anonymous. The system priced each class based on aggregate demand. It had no idea who you were. Two strangers booking on the same day, on the same route, at the same time, paid the same price. That is beginning to change. In 2025, Delta Airlines began deploying an AI pricing system built by a company called Fetcher. Unlike yield management, which manages fare classes by route and timing, Fetcher prices individual tickets using over 100 variables, in real time, continuously, with no fixed bucket structure. On Delta's earnings call in July 2025, company president Glenn Howenstein confirmed that approximately 3% of domestic tickets were already AI priced, with a target of 20% of domestic routes by year end. If it scales across the network, the result is an entirely individual price for every seat on every flight. The regulatory reaction was swift. On August 5, 2025, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy warned airlines that the Department of Transportation would investigate any carrier using personal data, income, browsing history, location, to set individualized prices. The distinction matters. Yield management prices the seat based on when demand arrives. AI pricing can potentially price the seat based on who is doing the buying. The first is an anonymous auction. The second is something qualitatively different, a system that charges each person as much as it estimates they will bear. Robert Crandall, who retired from American Airlines in 1998, reportedly said, "If I have 2,000 customers on a given route and 400 different prices, I'm obviously short 1,600. He meant it as a candid, slightly amused acknowledgement of where the logic, taken to its extreme, leads. That logic did produce something real. The New York to Los Angeles round trip that required a corporate expense account in 1974 now costs around $268. Deregulation and yield management together made flying accessible to people who had never been in the air. That is not a small thing. But the same tool that fills planes also extracts the maximum from anyone who can be extracted from. The business traveler booking 2 days out has no alternative. They pay whatever the algorithm decides the seat is worth. The family who planned in January got the cheap slot. The question of whether those are genuinely the same product is a reasonable one. What Crandall's team built in 1985 was a machine for converting information asymmetry into revenue. You do not know how many seats are in each class or how full the plane is. The airline knows both. Every ticket purchase is a negotiation where only one party has read the notes. As AI pricing scales, that asymmetry deepens. Whether the result is a more efficient market, where airlines waste less capacity and pass savings on, or a more precise extraction, where every buyer pays exactly what they can bear, is a question that hasn't been answered yet. The algorithm is still learning, and in a quiet way, so are the regulators trying to understand it.